Alright guys, what is going on? Fly here, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are going to be covering the future of Russian aviation in War Thunder. Now sorry, this video took me a while to get out. It wasn't because I was struggling in producing it, I was actually waiting to make it more professional. If you guys can't tell right now, I acquired a new microphone, so hopefully the static is gone. You know, I have a P guard to help with, you know, like these. Oh my god, that was really loud. I'm sorry about that, guys. But alright guys, so let's get into it. Alright, so how this video is actually going to flow is that I'm going to start with the aircraft that I'm least excited about but willing to cover, and then finish with the aircrafts that I'm most excited about. Now I'm not going to cover some of the aircrafts in the Russian tree just because we've already had experience with those aircraft, but for some I'll make exceptions. Alright, so let's finally get started. The first two airplanes that I'm covering for the Russian tree in this video are the Yak-9 and the Yak-9B. The Yak-9 was the most produced fighter of World War II. So basically, this is the earliest variant of the Yak-9 we'll get, so expect, you know, slower speed, slower climb, but overall a decent aircraft. Now the Yak-9B variant, which was in bomber configuration, capable of carrying up to 400 kilograms of bombs, or get this, carrying PTABs or PTAB, which were 32 times 1.5 kilograms. So maybe like a early form of cluster bombing, and I think that would be kind of cool because I've seen some videos on the web of the T-35 with its multiple cannons using machine guns. So with that said, there might be infantry or AI infantry, so it would be kind of cool to see if this plane would be used as a countered infantry with those small bombs. The IL-2M NS-37. So what this is, it's a variation of the IL-2, but instead of having 23 millimeters under it, this plane has two 37 millimeters. So this is going to be a lot better for ground attack because in War Thunder, you take out your IL-2, you get rid of your rockets, you get rid of your bombs, and you really can't take care of any kind of medium to heavy tank. But hopefully, with the addition of the NS-37 cannons, which there are two cannons on the IL-2, hopefully we'll be able to get some more RP and Lions, being able to take out heavy or medium or even heavy tanks. Next up is the YAK-30. Now this was an experimental Soviet interceptor. It was eventually canceled, but it first flew on September 4th, 1948, and it has some impressive stats. Now compared to the MiG-15, the Yak-30's maximum speed is 1,025 kilometers an hour, which is 34 kilometers an hour slower than MiG-15. For its climb rate, it is 10.2 meters a second slower than the MiG-15, and that's actually pretty impressive to me considering that the Yak-30 used a Klimov RD 500 turbofan. Sorry if I mispronounced it, but that engine is basically half of what the MiG-15 used. The MiG-15 used the Klimov VK1, which had 6,000 pounds of force, with the Yak-30 only having 3,500 pounds of force. But with the Yak-30 being an experimental aircraft, I would assume that some of the records weren't as accurate as the MiG-15 just because the MiG-15 had a long proven service life and the Yak-30 was just, as said before, experimental. The PE-8. Now this was the only four-engine bomber the USSR built in World War II. Rest in peace TB3, you're the best. But anyways, this plane was produced in limited numbers and used for moral raids. Now what moral raids means is that the PE-3 would sneak up at night and target German airfields and railroads to expose weak points and boost the morale of the Soviet citizens. Now being a morale bomber, the PE-8 was a high value target for the German fighters. And so what happened is that this plane losses doubled from 1942 to 1944. This plane has some pretty cool specs for what I'm thinking will be a low tier bomber. Now not counting the rate of climb, but the maximum speed is 443 kilometers an hour, and the armament, which I'm kind of excited about, is 220 mils in the dorsal and tail turrets, 250 cals in the engine nacelles, 7.62 millimeters in the nose turret. And it has a pretty good bomb load of 5,000 kilograms, so if this plane does get a bomber spawn point, which I hope it does, with its rate of climb only being 5.9 meters a second, this should be a pretty adequate bomber. Alright guys, this plane here is going to wreck everything. This is the Tu-4, aka the B-29 on super cocaine and steroids. The Tu-4 was licensed to the USSR, and the Russians literally took this plane and armed it. Oh my gosh guys, this armed it to the teeth. Now, not really taking into the performance account or whatever, the empty weight and stuff compared to the B-29, because it's pretty much a replica of the B-29, but not even looking at the bomb load either. You know, a decent bomb load, you know, 6,000 kilograms, whoop-de-doo. What the Russians did to the defense capabilities of the B-29 is almost scary. This plane has 10 23 mils. 2 cannon in each of the 4 turrets and 2 cannons in the tail. So I'm actually afraid of this plane. I don't even think I will go after it with jets, because if a player has all their gun crew maximized, imagine how much damage a single 50 cal does to your plane. It might turn your core red, maybe 4 or 5 50 cals, you're on fire. Imagine if just one of those 23 mils hit your plane, you're gone. Next up are jet bombers, the Tu-14 and the IL-28. Now, if you take cutouts or blueprints of these planes and put them side by side, they have very small differences. The Tu-14, which was a jet torpedo bomber for the USSR, could also carry bombs up to 3,000 kilograms. It had 223 mils in the front and 223 millimeters in the tail. Even the stats between both of these planes are very similar. The maximum speed for the Tu-14 is 848 kilometers an hour. The IL-28 is 902 kilometers an hour. And I think the main reason why the IL-28 has a little bit more of a speed advantage than the Tu-14 is because the IL-28 is more aerodynamically sound than the Tu-14. The Tu-14 uses the VK turbojets that are rated at 5,950 pounds, and the IL-28 uses the VK-1A turbojets that has 2 pounds more thrust than the VKs. So the IL-28 is much more aerodynamically sound than the Tu-14. Even the bomb load is almost identical. I don't really know the history of Tupolev and Illusions or IL, but they must have butted heads a lot, because these a lot of stealing, a lot of the same design. But yeah, so these are the new 2 jet bombers coming into War Thunder. Just a little bit more about the IL-28. It has 4 23 mils in the same assembly as a Tu-14. 2 in the nose and 2 in the back. So pretty much identical aircraft with the same amount of speed. I don't really know much about the Tupolev and IL's history, but just from my naive opinion, I think these companies are working for contracts for the government to earn money for their company and pay people's salaries. So if these designs are so similar, I wouldn't be surprised if people died for these designs, you know, just butting heads as much as they did. Alright guys, the last aircraft in this release tree, but definitely not least at all. This is my most anticipated plane of the Russian patch, or the Russian update, excuse me. The MBR-2, which was oh my gosh, this thing looks so derpy, which was a Soviet flying boat created in the early 1930s. More than 1,300 of these were produced. And just out of the way it looks, as it looks on the screen, these things were completely and utterly useless by World War II start. Even the start of it, no use. On to the specifications of the MBR-2 biz. The maximum speed is 275 kilometers an hour, which is 171 miles an hour. The armament kind of, you know, do it justice. For it being a boat plane, it has a decent armament of one 7.62 mil PV-1 machine gun and one 7.62 mm Shakash. So the ones, you know, on the normal default Russian bombers that shoot like this, bzzz, you know, they're actually not bad. But it's bomb load. This plane couldn't even drop a cow on an enemy. The bomb load is 300 kilograms. The Japanese D3A1 could almost carry as much bombs as the MBR, with 50 kilograms less than the MBR. Now guys, I know that this plane was created in the 1930s, but I'm gonna love this plane like lamp, because we are gonna be using this plane in custom battles. I can already see it already. MBRs versus PBYs, MBRs versus H6Ks, MBRs versus OS2Us, the possibilities, MBRs versus Tu-4s. Like, this is my most anticipated aircraft of the Russian release tree. Who is with me? Raise your dongers. Oh my gosh, I'm having too much fun making this video. Alright guys, that is it with the Russian release tree. Next up is the UK. Whew, we have a ton of work to do for the UK release tree, as tons of planes are being added. The whole Royal Navy. It should be a lot of fun, but a lot of work. So expect that video in about 2 weeks. I don't want to lose my voice trying to make that video. Alright guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Give me a like, as it makes my day. Until next release tree video, Matt Damon.
Aviation.